too dark. Hey, Lynn.
Hey, Dave, how are you?
Thanks for doing that. Oh my God.
Oh, sure. I think I got everybody. I did not include the two. I don't know if you saw the messages, but Midge sent a couple from like Dan Riss and Kevin Searing, people who were
So y'all are
deceased.
live, just so you know.
And I didn't know if we were required to read in comments from people who are deceased.
Yeah.
Just because someone asked us to.
Okay.
Everybody in the Zoom room is live, just so you know.
Okay.
Right? And you're recording.
I am not looking good there. Am I? Do I have a bad connection?
Nothing.
You guys can hear me okay?
I've got somebody in the attendee. Whoa, what happened there? Sorry. I've got somebody in the attendees that has the initials MB. Is that Mike Busher?
Yes, should be.
Okay. All right.
Lynn, you want to take turns? I'll do the first one. You do the second one. You want to do that?
Yeah, we can just
In that
alternate.
list. Yep, that's good.
Okay.
I
And
appreciate
you got the version 2 that I sent just a few minutes ago.
Yeah, I think I did. I got the most recent one. Let me just look at the last. So you put them on the end when you got them. So
Yes.
the last one is 9 pages from Midge, March 20. Nope, sorry, Sharon Garvey.
There's one more from Nancy Case.
Should I be hearing anything?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, let me check again, Lynn. I don't see Nancy Cases. Oh, there it is. Yep, sorry. I had the
Great.
wrong one.
Okay.
Okay, 10 pages.
I got it
Yes.
now. Okay.
Are you able to hear now, Chris?
I am. It was, I put my my hearing aids on the loop, but I didn't put the loop around my neck. So.
Okay. All right. Do we have everybody in that is on the BZA?
We do. Kevin Hamilton and Ken Sayre should be as well.
Okay, you want, oh, there's Kevin Hamilton. All right, hang on.
Yeah.
And you want Ken in at this point?
Yeah, he should be in on the whole thing.
All
Hey, Chad.
right. All right, so I'm just gonna, I don't know who the caller is with the 202 number, so we'll just, when we go down through the list, we'll have to just ask about that. And John Stump is in the attendee list. He does have his hand up at this time. So just let you if you need me to bring him in, you can let me know.
Okay.
All right.
Who is that again?
John Stump.
Okay.
Okay. So
John Stump is with Swan, correct?
correct.
Okay.
Yeah, he's their legal advisor.
Okay.
All right, you're at 6:01 and you are live. So
okay, my video is not working. Okay, let's go. Okay, I want to welcome everyone to the BZA hearing for the demolition review permit for the Hilltop House Hotel located at 400 East Ridge Street. In attendance, we have Lynn Pechakonis.
Here.
Chad Godier.
Here.
Mike Boucher, Vice Chair.
Here.
Chris Craig, Secretary.
Here.
And I am David Simmons, the Chair. We also have our town attorney, Mr. Ken Sayre.
Here.
And the ordinance compliance officer for the town, Kevin Hamilton. Kevin, can you unmute and say here?
I think his mic is off. There you go.
How about now?
Gotcha. Thanks, Kevin.
All right, thank you.
All right, and I apologize. It looks like my video is not working. I don't know why. I keep chopping up, so I'll try it again. But it's not wanting to work.
There you are.
We'll see. It's been going fuzzy. Okay. To start off, I want to give an overview about why we're here with the ordinances. So in 131304, which is part of the Promontory Overlay District rules, So 13-1304 A3A. Give me a moment to get there. I want to read this out. No structure within the promontory overlay district may be constructed, reconstructed, altered, enlarged, diminished, demolished, or relocated in any manner described in section 13-1304 unless an application, excuse me, with plans has been reviewed and approved by the Board of Zoning Appeals in accordance with section 13-1304, the historic standards and guidelines, Appendix A of Part 13, Project and Zoning Code, and all other relevant provisions of the codified ordinances of Harper's Ferry. And if you go to Appendix A, which it references under relocation and demolition, which is on page 32 and 33 of Appendix A, item 2C indicates a demolition review permit shall be reviewed by the Board of Zoning Appeals at a public hearing, which we're having now, except as provided in subsection 3 below, which talks about emergency demolitions. The Board of Zoning Appeals shall consider a demolition review permit within 45 days after the filing thereof by the owner or occupant. Notice of the time and place of the hearing shall be given by publication in newspaper having general circulation in the town at least 14 days before such hearing. So we've met those requirements. And today, the way this hearing will go is we'd like to have the applicant provide an overview of the project, open the public hearing, read public comments that have been given to us in written form, allow those who want to speak, close the public hearing, allow the applicant to address any comments that they wish or none if they wish as well, and then we will close the meeting. Okay. Any questions from the BZA or Mr. Sayre on that procedure?
No questions for me.
None here.
Okay. So Debbie, could you allow the Swan group in to give us an overview of the project?
Yep, doing it now.
Thank you.
All right, I think that's everyone. Give it a second to load.
Yep.
And everyone, as you come in, you're muted, so you'll just need to unmute when it's time to talk.
Okay. Everyone's there. All
Can you,
right.
this is Laurel Zemansky. Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, Laurel.
Hi, thank you so much for having the hearing this evening and all the coordination. I just want to quickly give an overview of what's been going on in the past 2 months. On January 27th, I sent an email both to Mayor Bishop and Patty Morse, and that was a request for a temporary emergency waiver according to Appendix B. It said, hello, Mayor Bishop, Fred and yourself were in agreement to move forward with demolition of the collapsing Hilltop House Hotel. Under Appendix D, there are guidelines for an emergency waiver for the demo permit. And then it talks about the emergency waiver, that it is the mayor's duly designated representative may grant temporary waiver to these regulations in the event of concern for public health, safety, welfare, the rights of the abutting property owners or residents, provided that such a decision is reported to the town council and planning commission as soon as practical. So this was the beginning of that that contact to both the town council and planning commission. And I asked how long this process would take place, 1 or 2 weeks. And then on February 25th, I got an email from Pat Morse saying we needed to do an application to the BZA with fees, one for the demo plan permit, one for the hearing. And on March 2nd, I have the stamped applications for both the fees were received and the applications were received along with the plans. So that kind of, is where we've come to with this. I know it went to your hands. You guys been working hard. Thank you. Just in quick summary, I have two experts with us from our team. The first one is Jessie Ponce de Leon. She's from Gordon. She has a 202 number, and she's our professional engineer. And the second one is Michael Binder. He is going to be the project manager of demolition on site every day, and he is from JLL. So I'm first going to let Jessie go over a quick summary of the demo plan, and then Michael will discuss a quick schedule overview. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, so as Laurel noted,
Okay, so she's got some feedback. Yeah, hang on, she's working on it.
so it might have feedback again. Okay.
I think she's running two devices.
No problem.
Okay, it's coming back in.
Thanks, Deb.
Okay,
Apologies with that. Are you all able to hear me better now?
yes.
Okay, sorry, because I had called in anyhow. As Laurel noted, Jessie Ponce de Leon with Gordon BC. We are the professional engineer of record for the project, and we prepared the demolition review permit documents that you all have reviewed. So I just want to go over, again, the contents of that demolition review permit package. As you all have reviewed, and as Laurel noted, the reason why this plan set was prepared was strictly for the removal of the hotel itself, and no other surrounding improvements are proposed with the application. In addition to the hotel removal, there are going to be utility disconnections that need to take place as part of the removal. Again, the reason for the removal is because, as we all know, the structural integrity has been severely compromised to a point where it is no longer a safe space to be. It's been going on for a while now, and so the application was submitted to take down the hotel. And the only disturbing activity associated with this application is for the hotel removal and the utility disconnections. No other surrounding areas or vegetated areas or previously undeveloped areas are going to be impacted by this application. I also want to iterate that the application will follow all local, state, and federal requirements, both for demolition activities, for transportation activities, for access to the site, for construction, as well as environmental protection laws. We understand that there are very sensitive waterways that surround the site, and every precaution will be taken to ensure that any removals associated with the project and any sediment that is potentially generated with the project is not going to enter the adjacent waterways. So various protection measures will be implemented, such as super silt fence on the downhill areas of the site, as well as wash-off stations to ensure that no debris or construction debris is entering the roadways. Some of the other ENS measures that are being put in place are dewatering activities. So any water that is exposed during the construction activity will be stored and released at a rate that is appropriate to not cause undue erosion, and certainly not released to the adjacent slopes and waterways to the site. Another component of the project, of course, is the traffic and pedestrian safety plan and the roadways in which we intend to use for construction activities. Columbia Street will be the primary route that is used for hauling of materials and access to the site. There is potential to use other roadways if needed or as necessary for larger movements due to the slope constraints and not safety, but slope constraints of Columbia. But Columbia Street will be the primary point of ingress and egress for the site during the construction activity. One other thing that we did want to note is that, as that the plan was prepared 100% in accordance with Appendix B of Part 13 of the Zoning and Subdivision Code of the ordinances of the town of Harpers Ferry.
Great.
So I'm Michael Binder, Jones Lang LaSalle. So just very high level schedule. We would like to mobilize starting on May 10th, along with installing sediment and erosion controls that same week, the week of the 10th. Have a pre-demolition inspection the 19th and 20th of May, and then start demolition on May 24th. We have that for a 65-day activity. We have a post-demolition inspection the 19th and 20th of August, and then backfill, seed, and stabilize the site. It's a 5-day activity the week of, I guess, August 19th, and then final inspection and sign off on August 26th and 27th, and then substantial completion would be August 27th.
I missed May. You said May 19th and 20th again. You said sediment controls in the 10th, 19th and 20th is what again?
So sediment and erosion controls I have for a week. So it's on May 11th through the 17th.
Yep.
And then a pre-demolition inspection would be on May 19th and May 20th.
Okay. And when's the asbestos abatement to start? Is that part of the 24th?
That would be part of the 24th. It's all in, that would be part of the work plan. Yes.
Okay. Any Laurel Moore to that?
Yeah, that sums up, the where we are with the plan and the schedule. So you can go ahead and move on to your next agenda item, and we'll circle back and answer some questions at the end.
Yeah, we'll have you guys listen to the comments. We'll invite you back in for that.
Sure.
And we'll be reading the written comments as well, so you can hear those.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Deb, you can, yes, all right,
Working on it.
okay, thanks. All right. And John's is staying
John's
on?
out.
No,
No,
okay.
he's out. Okay. All right. There we
And
go.
did we lose Kevin? It looks like we lost Kevin.
Did we lose Kevin?
We did lose Kevin.
I probably inadvertently. It's very simple. It's very easy to inadvertently do that. But he's coming back in.
All right, good. So now I'm going to open the public comment portion of the hearing. And what I'd like to do is we're going to read the written comments that we've received. And Lynn Petriconis and I are going to alternate just so you're not sick of hearing my voice and I don't lose my voice. And after that, we'll invite the speakers in. Right now we have 2 speakers, Lynn, from what I understand, Roberta Mead and Benjamin Buckley. We'll invite them in one at a time. And at the end of that, we'll close the hearing. So,
Quick question
Okay.
before you get started. Do you want to time these written things?
sure, they probably should stay at 5 minutes to be fair to the people who are speaking.
All right, so I'll time and then I'll give you 30 seconds when you're 30 seconds out.
Okay, I will go first. All right.
Okay.
First comment from Lynn and Greg Vaughn to the BZA. The hilltop has been deteriorating to the point of collapse for years, provided that appropriate safety measures are taken to protect life, private property in the vicinity, and that steps are taken to protect the environment and correctly mitigate hazardous materials. We see no reason why demolition should be delayed or postponed any further.
She's muted.
Yep.
Hang on, you got to start over again, Lynn.
Okay, this comment is from Miles Morse. Please make sure the following conditions are met in the demolition plan for Hilltop House. Number 1, truck route. Should not be going down Ridge Street. It's too close to homes. They need to go down Columbia to Washington. The dip at the intersection of these two streets needs to be rectified by either the West Virginia Highway Department and or the Corps of Engineers by bringing in a steel spanning bridge to allow trucks to navigate the turn onto Washington Street. Number 2, debris in loaded trucks needs to be sprayed down and covered before leaving site to limit dust emission. Number 3, truck spray down area needs to be self-contained to prevent runoff contamination of local environment from spraying debris. A portable wash pad should be rented from a company like Evans Equipment to collect spray water for separate treatment disposal. And he provides a URL to Evans Equipment. Number 4, truck route needs to be sprayed down periodically to limit airborne dust. Number 5, truck route after turning onto Washington Street should be identified and should likely traverse Union Street to 340. Number 6, town should be closed to tourists during demolition to prevent traffic congestion for truck passage. Number 7, there needs to be some form of traffic control to limit truck deliveries to homes and businesses to allow unimpeded passage of debris trucks. Number 8, demolition process should likely be limited to weekdays due to traffic and resident disturbance. Number 9, there should likely be some sort of formal inspection of site for endangered species prior to onset of demolition. Number 10, measures to be taken to prevent debris from falling down hillside and potentially impacting CSX and hikers, tourists should be identified. Thanks, Miles Morris.
The next comment is from Zan Fleming. He writes, we note with concern the Swan proposal to use the East Ridge and Jackson Streets as the route for transporting debris from the hotel demolition. Swan has repeatedly agreed to use Columbia Street for construction-related activities, though Swan may now make a distinction between construction and demolition activities for purposes of the demolition permit. We fear that Swan will renege on the agreement for purposes of construction and even operational access once the residential street access is granted. Aside from that concern about Swan's future proposals, demolition, this is underlined, demolition transport through residential streets when a non-residential route is available is clearly unwarranted for health and safety considerations, underline stops. Young children live on the street, multiple driveways open on the street, and there is limited visibility for cars backing out onto the street. The Jackson-Washington Streets intersection is the most dangerous in the area because it sits at the top of steep slopes, which prevent adequate visibility coming out of Jackson or left turning onto Jackson. Please deny access by residential streets for any purpose. Deborah and Alexander Fleming. 550 Ridge Street.
This comment is from Ed Wheelis. I am writing as a private resident of Harpers Ferry in support of the application for demolition of the Hilltop House Hotel. The hotel building has become an attractive nuisance that should be removed. More than a decade ago, the Harpers Ferry Historic Landmarks Commission deemed the building beyond restoration. This sentence is in italics. If the hotel building were allowed to remain in place until an uncontrolled collapse occurred, it would be a greater threat to the railroad and our streams than the carefully planned approach proposed, in italics. I believe that the application adequately addresses the standards for project activities, Part 13, Appendix B, including the optional site logistics plan, safety requirements, preservation of trees, and the goals of the stormwater management ordinance. I believe the demolition plan clearly provides the clean and safe transport of demolition debris according to law. Since the hotel site is only accessible via secondary residential streets, I ask that the BZA approve the use of Columbia Street where possible and of Jackson and East Ridge Streets for larger vehicles unable to navigate the steep intersection at Columbia and Washington without bottoming out. I trust that the demolition permit will be evaluated on its own merit and not be used as a proxy for the larger hotel redevelopment, which will be considered later. I encourage the BZA to approve the permit without delay.
Okay, the next comment is from Carrie Ellen Godier, resident at 1190 West Ridge Street. Attention Board of Zoning Appeals. I write to express my sincere support of approving the demolition permit for the Hilltop Hotel. Demolition is a necessary and unavoidable step in the process of moving forward. I have full faith that SWAN will go above and beyond state and federal protocols to keep everyone safe during the demolition process. Please approve demolition so that the world can see progress.
From Linda and George Mac McCarty. Dear BZA members, today we learned that SWAN may need to use Jackson Street or as a route to bring in heavy equipment to the hotel site. We live at the corner of Jackson and Washington Streets, and we have no problem with this. It's not forever, but for a short time. We believe it's the least we can do to help get this project finally completed. Most sincerely, Linda and Mac McCarty.
Glad you read that one. You're good with the handwriting. This next one is I'm going to say who it's from first. It's from Patricia Morse, resident, Harpers Ferry resident. Dear members of the Harpers Ferry Board of Zoning Appeals, in reviewing the February 17th, 2021 demolition permit document prepared by Gordon DC, provided by SWAN, I could not find the answers to the following questions. Could the public be advised of the answers to the following questions prior to the BZA granting the demolition permit? That is a question mark. Number one, is this a wet or dry demo? If wet, has the state of Maryland been notified as runoff could affect the Potomac River? Number two, how will the demolition affect native animal species, including a pair of endangered bald eagles nesting in the vicinity of the hotel's site? Number three, does SWAN have indemnity insurance in place for residents who may claim damage, if any, to their property, i.e. to windows, foundations, parked vehicles caused by the demolition / demolition process? What is the amount of that policy? Number four, what is the size and tonnage of the trucks that will be utilized for hauling debris? Number five, please confirm that the load will be covered per state regulations. Number six, how many trucks will be coming and going per day? In parentheses, 6 days per week. Number seven, what date will the demolition work start and what is the time frame for completion of this demo? In parentheses, how many weeks will this continue? Number eight, will the trucks haul materials as they come down, or will the hotel be demolished in its entirety before the hauling debris begins? Number nine, will there be any blasting? Number 10, why will the project be using Jackson Street? Trucks going up and down East Ridge and Jackson will be closer to local homes. Has the use of Columbia Street been considered? Homes on Washington Street are set back further off the street. The intersection of Columbia and Washington will give a clearer view of oncoming traffic than the view on Jackson. Perhaps SWAN could work with the state of West Virginia and other engineers for a solution for the use of a metal ramp on Columbia Street to assist trucking with the dip in the road. SWAN should mitigate this and find a solution to utilize Columbia Street. Number 11, regardless of which intersection is used, by the time demo begins, we most likely will be in a heavy tourist season, both vehicular and pedestrian. Will a flagman be at the intersection during all working hours? What is the plan to manage backup traffic? Number 12, once trucks turn onto Washington Street, there is no information as to where they go from there. Do they turn left and go through Lower Town, or do they turn right on Washington Street? If turning right, will they then use Union Street under Bolivar's jurisdiction to Route 340 or go through the town of Bolivar? Has Bolivar been contacted, as they are uniquely impacted by the trucks transporting the Hilltop House debris? Bolivar must be included in part of the traffic plan. Number 13, has the town council of Bolivar been notified? Number 14, has the school board and the principal of Harpers Ferry Middle School been notified if trucks are going by the middle school on Washington Street? Number 15, where is waste material going? What other towns are being impacted with the waste being driven through those towns? Number 16, on page 3 of the Gordon document drawing, there is mention of an old, I believe, septic ejection pump tank, number 9. Although not used for decades, has groundwater collected in the tank been checked, tested for contaminants before being removed from the ground? Number 17, are there any other buried tanks on the property that are not noted on the map? If so, will they also be tested for contaminants prior to removal? 18, will the wastewater runoff from the truck washing area go on to Potomac River? How is that being mitigated? 19, will Swan restore the roads impacted by heavy truck traffic? Who is responsible for taking before and after photos of the street conditions? Please confirm receipt of this letter. Acknowledge that a member of BZA will read my questions at the hearing on Monday, March 29th for the record. Thank you in advance for a follow-up with the answers to these questions. Sincerely, Patricia Morse.
I'm reading the letter from Guy Hammer, Chair of the Historic Landmarks Commission for the Corporation of Harpers Ferry, to the Board of Zoning Appeals. The Historic Landmarks Commission met in a special meeting today to address the Harpers Ferry Ordinance 13-1304A38 per the request of the Board of Zoning Appeals. BZA seeks our recommendations on the demolition permit for the Hilltop House Hotel main building. HLC has reviewed all of its information concerning the demolition of Hilltop House Hotel building by the current owner, Swan Investors. We accessed our archives for the critical information that addresses the condition of this historic building and its future disposition. We reviewed the conclusions and recommendations of the 2018 update to the Historic Resources Plan, as well as an additional May 2018 email exchange from Ms. Mary Orline, architect of the Capitol, which she says in quotes, because of the poor condition of the existing building fabric and systems, preservation of the limited amount of remaining historic fabric would require an extensive amount of demolition, rebuilding, replication, and new construction at very great expense. Without substantial alteration of the interior configuration and the construction of one or more large additions, the program and functional needs of a modern accessible hotel could not be met. It is therefore our reluctant recommendation as preservation architects and engineers that the existing building be demolished and a new building be constructed that will accommodate the functional needs of current hotel use and meet current construction and life safety codes. The new building should be carefully designed to enhance the site, to be compatible with visual prominence of this site, and to be compatible with the architectural character of the Harpers Ferry Historic District, end quote. Further, in the exchange was this statement by Ms. Airline, in quotes, the building foundations no longer exist in many places, have been undermined by excavation without underpinning, and lack sufficient footings. Framing is undersized throughout the building, frequently with spans that exceed the capacity of the members. The wood framing has substantial areas of rot and insect damage, and floors are significantly out of level. Walls are bowed beyond acceptable tolerances and have numerous settlement cracks. The list goes on. There was very little of the structure that was sound enough or adequately sized for continued use to warrant calculations, end quote. We concur with the above expert insights from Ms. Airline. Therefore, the HLC recommends that the current Hilltop House Hotel building be demolished and archived on paper as to preservation of any potential remaining historic resources. Sincerely, Guy Hammer.
I'm reading the next one from Midge Flynn Yost, resident of the Harpers Ferry Historic District. Dear BZA members, thank you for trying your best to navigate the most complex project in recent Harpers Ferry history. You seem to be sincere in your efforts to try and recall previous information and discussions and try to draw conclusions from previous discussions and what you hear from others. I urge the BZA to hire an attorney and professional consultants to help you understand your obligations regarding demolition and project permits for Swan Legend Venture Partners and the Hilltop House Hotel, as you are required to comply with federal, state, and municipal regulations in your response to the application. In this time of COVID-19, the BZA has not made documentation and audio regarding their discussions on Swan's demolition by neglect permit request fully available to the public. It limits the public's ability to be fully informed and comment on what's important, and in parentheses, and to not comment on items that have been attended to. March 29th, agenda, several Swan documents. March 22nd, no agenda, no documents, no audio, video. March 16th, agenda only, no documents, video link does not work. Can find if you hunt on that drive, on the drive. March 11th, agenda only, no documents, no audio, video. March 3rd, agenda only, no documents, audio, video. That's a summary of what's on the website for our meetings regarding this project. Please note my concerns with the documents associated with Swan's demolition by neglect permit request. Documents are not based on the town's plat for street boundaries, includes property, streets and rights of way not owned by the applicant, are not the approved zoning map of Harper's Ferry, do not include the required West Virginia Division of Culture and History review, since the hotel project will be assisted by the state, do not include required statements from WV SHPO, do not include documentation from the West Virginia Department of Environmental Protection, DEP, regarding handling of asbestos, do not include environmental, stormwater, or archaeology reports in advance of land disturbance on newly acquired lots and potential rights of way. Reference state laws for construction activities when we have more stringent requirements. For example, e.g. no graphics or fence signage. Are vague on items like fence height, minimum 6 feet, in parentheses, when these details should be known. Show no controls on how long the public off from the viewing area and what triggers the public to regain access. Show no statements from NPS or MD regarding the potential for toxic site runoff to the Potomac River. Show no HF, HLC, or HFPC statements. Show no statements on how the demolition will proceed. Show no maximum weight requirements for vehicles hauling demo materials. Show an odd route for trucks, and other details that require further review and an open forum discussion. Are we to assume that this will be a wall-by-wall demolition based on BZA member Chad Gaudier and Rob Case discussion that the applicant is trying to preserve as much as possible from the existing materials? That doesn't align with the previous reports from Swan that interior materials are not planned to be salvaged. I'm wondering why there was so much discussion on Swan preserving building materials during the 3/16/21 meeting, or Case/Gaudier suggesting that Swan be required to have an area to separate out materials for reuse in the demo permit. Why hasn't the BZA received the required state reports and other documentation before this public hearing? Why is there no narrative from the HLC or BZA on the current status of the building, and no reason stated for the demolition of a contributing structure to our historic district or the recommended approach to demolition to mitigate the health and safety of residents and visitors? Thank you, Midge.
This comment is from Sharon Garvey. I would hope that the demolition of the old Hilltop House Hotel could be effected as quickly as possible since it continues to deteriorate. In this, I am echoing the stated desires of Mayor Bishop, who in various documents and public comments going back to 2016 has pressed for the demolition of the structure. It will of course pose considerable inconvenience and disruption to local residents, especially those people who live on Jackson Street and East Ridge Street, parentheses, as is the case for my husband and me, in parentheses, but delaying the inevitable will not lessen the impact. Sincerely, Sharon Garvey.
This next one, this final comment is from Nancy Singleton Case, 601 East Ridge Street. Sorry, I'm cycling back and forth here. Dear BZA members, I respectfully request you read the following into the public record at tonight's BZA hearing. On page 5.5, towards the very end of the Historic Resources Plan, which was a required element of the tripartite concept design plan submitted by Swan in May of 2018, the Mills Group concurs with world-renowned architect Mary Orline. Ms. Orline conducted a comprehensive study of the Hilltop House Hotel, and in her 2008 report, she wrote, "Because of the poor condition of the existing building fabric and systems, preservation of the limited amount of remaining historic fabric would require an extensive amount of demolition, rebuilding, replication, and new construction at very great expense. Without substantial alteration of the interior configuration and the construction of one or more large additions, the program and functional needs of a modern, accessible hotel could not be met. It is therefore our reluctant recommendation as preservation architects and engineers that the existing building be demolished and a new building be constructed that will accommodate the functional needs of current hotel use and meet current construction and life safety codes. The new building should be carefully designed to enhance the site, to be compatible with visual prominence of the site, and to be compatible with the architectural character of the Harpers Ferry Historic District." That was all in red text and in italics. Signed Mary Orline, FAIA, Historic Preservation Officer, Architect of the Capitol. The note continues, "Despite what many have been led to believe, this hotel was not salvageable when purchased by Swan and was in need of demolition 13 years ago, ! I thank you for your thoughtful review and consideration of Swan's permit application and support their request for the town to issue a demolition permit. Nancy Singleton Case." And that is the last written comment we've received. Lynn, you had a question about some that came in late. Maybe we should ask Mr. Sayre about those. Go ahead. You're muted.
Sorry. A resident submitted 2 separate messages. One was a comment from a couple of years ago that had been read under different circumstances. He is now deceased. The second one was a comment that had been read into the record at a different event, who is not a resident, I believe, but is also deceased. And we wondered if we were required to read submissions from deceased residents or non-residents.
I don't believe that the board is necessarily obligated to. However, I think that in cases like this, it's always a good idea just to be inclusive, and we can go ahead and read them in. I think that the board can weigh them based upon the current status of the individuals making the comment, but you know, it is a public hearing, and individuals are wanting certain comments made. So I don't see an issue with allowing it to happen. And if the board doesn't want to do it, I don't think that would necessarily taint the hearing. But again, I personally think, you know, it's an inclusive when you're having a public hearing, and so you should err on the behalf of including as opposed to excluding. That's one of those good lawyer answers where I've answered it 10 different ways, and now I'm handing it back over to you.
Okay. I think we should, let's read them. But I want to make sure I have them. That's my problem. So
I have access if you'd like me to go ahead.
yeah, can you go ahead and read those? I see one. I see the Kevin Saring one. Dear BZA members, I can read that one right now if you can find the other one.
Yep, I've got it.
Okay. Dear BZA members, please read these excerpts from the attached letter into the public record during the 3/29/21 public hearing on the Hilltop House Hotel demolition permit. This letter was sent to Harpers Ferry Town Council by the renowned historic preservation specialist Kevin Lee Saring before he passed away. It is pertinent to this demolition permit request and debunks statements made recently by BZA members regarding the original structural analysis of the hotel. And then the note is Hilltop House Preservation, Kevin Lee Saring, March 22nd, 2019, revised Rev 324, 2019. Hilltop House is listed on the National Register of Historic Places as a contributing building in the Harpers Ferry Historic District, parentheses 2010. The Harpers Ferry Historic District was entered on the register in 1979 by the keeper of the National Register after public process through the West Virginia Department of the Arts, Culture, State Historic Preservation Office, and included review/confirmation by professional historians, owner consent, and public support. In the 2008 Hilltop Hotel Building Condition Report, there are 19 recommendations to preserve Hilltop House and its significant African American history and architecture. The report recommends preserving the significant 1920s building by removing ladder accretions, new retaining walls with drainage, underpinning the foundation with perimeter drainage, abating hazardous material, treating for termites and mold, salvaging/reusing/replicating 1920s windows, trim, doors, flooring, hardware, light fixtures, reconstructing the east porch with reused salvaged 1920s fabric, new roof sheathing, flashing gutters, downspouts, removing attic dormers, replacing rotted framing, strengthening and leveling undersized framing, replacing mechanical, electrical, plumbing, fire protection, security systems, two new 2-hour fire-rated exit stairs, new elevators, and reconfiguring the interior for hotel guest rooms, bathrooms, kitchens, offices, dining rooms, meeting rooms, and support space retaining corridors and bearing walls. In 2019, there are 3 areas of continuing structural failure caused by owner, non-maintenance, and neglect. There is ongoing demolition by neglect on the entrance facade with the porch collapse at northwest roof corner and at the roof of the south elevation where cracks are opening. At the roof, deteriorating metal flashing permits rainwater to enter the wall top, washes out, deteriorates pointing, rots wood framing ends, and together with freeze thaw breaks masonry. Since the report was written 11 years ago, by observation, there are no foundation failures on the visible 3 facades, except as noted above. At the roof, there's no evidence of any exterior masonry cracks, including at 45% on fenestration lintels. Eccentric wall settlement, water ponding, and entering at the foundation, and open/deteriorated masonry joints. On page 53 and 54, Hilltop Hotel Building Condition Report prepared for Gensler, September 2008. Orline Associates Architects, Robert Stillman Associates PC Structural Engineer, Robinson and Associates Inc. Historian. Missing from the report are a stabilization plan, business case analysis comparing repair versus demolition and building new, and a full structural analysis including engineering calculations. Thank you, and please enter the full letter into the public record. Midge Flynn Yost, resident, Harpers Ferry Historic District.
This is also from Midge Flynn Yost. BZA members, please read the following item into the public record during tonight's BZA hearing on the Hilltop House Hotel demolition permit. This statement of concern about hotel demolition was sent to Harpers Ferry Town Council in June of 2018 by former Town Council member Dan Riss, who was a conservator with the National Park Service for years before he passed away. Email record attached. And then she has in quotes, note that the developers have made an assertion that this structure needs demolition, but have not demonstrated that finding with a proper engineering study. If it turns out that demolition is needed, the structure should be thoroughly documented in lieu of preservation. The previous report was not comprehensive enough to qualify as a serious historic structures report in the NPS manner. If we can't make this happen for this building, we will never be able to require any owner of any other property to document their structure in the face of destruction. End quote, Dan Riss, 6/9/2018. Thank you, Midge Flynn Yost, resident.
Thank you, Lynn. Okay, at this point, I'd like to invite in Roberta Mead for her public comments. And then Deb, I'll explain to her the timing piece and then let her get started. Roberta, can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, I can hear you.
So just so you know, the hearing procedures are you have 5 minutes to speak, and we'll give you a 30-minute warning at the end. Deb will probably say 30 seconds, and then she'll say time's up at the end. Okay.
Okay, I understand.
All right, and you may begin.
Okay, very good. Good evening. Thank you, BZA and other town members and council members, if present, for letting us speak. I think some of the points were covered that I also have discussed and presented in my document. But the most concerned issue is item number 1, where a lot of the information was not on the website and not available to the public. So that has compromised the public's knowledge and the ability to evaluate what's being determined by the BZA and what information the BZA has discussed. So my suggestion, because we didn't have this information to prepare properly for tonight's meeting, is that the BZA holds a second public meeting and allows the public to review the documents not presented on the website. I think you only had March 11th. You did not have March 11th and March 16th information up on the website, and audio or visual recordings for the public to evaluate. And I was not alone in that statement. Item number 2, based on the comments from the BZA members in the audios I was able to listen to, which was February 24th and March 3rd. The following comments were made, and I tend to agree with a lot of these comments, and I'd like the BZA to really listen to what they said and take these into heed and act accordingly. Quote unquote, this is a very high profile project. Item 2, applications submitted for the demolition permit is incomplete, and specific things were asked for to be received from the project management team. Some of the items that were mentioned were who is going to be the town's owner's rep, as stated on the cover sheet in notes item number 10 and number 11. How is the asbestos abatement going to be handled, and is the application submitted to the state? How are the utility shutoffs and cap inspections going to be done? Has there been coordination with the railroad company and contacted them for coordination of demolition and safety? Coordination with the National Park Service. I think many points have already been brought up by other members. Coordination with the surrounding tourist attraction. I think it was mentioned very well. We're in the height of the tourist season. How are we going to handle this, especially if there's going to be contaminants in the air and contaminants in the water affecting the tourists? I understand there had to be a planning commission review for the stormwater, and I believe I'm not alone in that statement. Other members you read into the record have asked that question. Fish and wildlife coordination. There are possibly 2 or 3 bald eagles nests within the area, and how are we safeguarding them and not disturbing their nest? It is nesting season. Department of Environmental Protection, the West Virginia Department of Transportation coordination, and again, archaeological preservation and findings. What are we going to find once we start demolition? And is there an architectural report submitted to the record? I also agree that there should be a pre-demolition and construction meeting with all parties present, and this should be done prior to the project commencement. I also agree with the BZA that weekly meetings with the project management team and the town representative should be done on a weekly basis with all parties in attendance. Town and city representatives needs to be identified, and I think that person needs to be hired, and it needs to be a highly qualified person. I don't think the town ordinance coordinator is a part-time volunteer, and I don't think that maybe this project is out of their realm of expertise. There should be an RFP which advertises for that city representative, and I think that person should be hired and search done, and that person should be on the job 30 days prior to commencement, so that that person is up and ready and represents the city and their concerns for this
30
project.
seconds.
There are other items. You can look at my letter, but again, I hope that the engineering team and project management team does look at these concerns and questions, especially contaminants. We don't want some of those things to be released into the sewage. We want the wheel wash water to be contained and off-site. And again, the historical properties of this project, especially the exterior walls, those are exterior architectural features. What is, Swan has said they're going to save those components and reuse them in the construction. Thank you. And I would appreciate consideration of my comments.
Thank you, Roberta. Sorry, I was muted. Debbie, can you have Benjamin Buckley come into the
No,
meeting?
I don't. Roberta, is Benjamin with you? I don't see him listed separately in the attendee list.
Yes, he's present.
Oh, great. Okay.
Hello, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good. Should I start now or what should I do?
I just want to make sure you understood the rules of the speaking, which is 5 minutes. You'll get a 30-minute warning. Debbie will say 30 seconds. And at the end of 5 minutes, you'll say time's up.
Okay, so I have 5 minutes with a 30-second
Yes.
warning at the end.
With a 30-second warning, yes.
Okay, thank you.
So you can
Should I-
begin anytime.
Okay, well, you know, I recently moved here and retired here. And I never thought I would get involved in this thing. I was kind of looking forward to just taking it easy, but I really care about this place and I love it. And my observation is that this project is bigger than the town. You know, this is quite a big project and the town needs some help. And one of the things that happens in construction is a builder has to make a pledge of compliance to adhere to all codes and ordinances. This is required whenever they're issued a building permit. So this is like a Boy Scouts pledge, a Boy Scouts honor. That's all it's worth. It's just a pledge. What happens next is the responsibility of the town of Harper's Ferry to verify all that the builder says he's pledged to do. So that's our job. And if we don't do our job, there's consequences. And one of the, I don't know all the consequences, but I know a couple of them. One of the consequences is that we may get withheld federal funds if we don't comply with federal regulations. So we could look at maybe some funds going away. And I don't know how much we depend on funds. But the other thing is, it has to do with insurance ratings and so on and so forth. I don't know if you all are familiar with ISO. That's the Insurance Services Office, and the BCEGS. That's the Building Code Effectiveness Grading Schedule. Anyway, to these two outfits, they monitor all the insurance work in the United States, and they give the information to insurance commissions and insurance underwriters to rate, to set the rates of insurance. Anyway, to my knowledge, the town of Harpers Ferry has no inspection personnel to monitor construction and demolition activity on the Hilltop project. Typically, the cost of all the work done by a municipality is paid for by permit fees collected from the builder, and in this case, demolition company. The reason the town should do this is to make sure the work is done correctly and adheres to life and safety codes. As the work progresses, and regardless of whether we monitor any of the work or not, we, the city, and also the citizens are being assessed on our job and assigned a number, which is our grade and represents our status as a responsible municipality. Those grades are sent to insurance underwriters to be used to set our insurance rates. As a state, West Virginia rates about mid-level. However, local jurisdictions get rated, and if no inspections, reviews are conducted, then a town is rated very low. and the money that should have been paid to the reviews and inspections and so forth will be spread across the population and absorbed into all the citizens' insurance rates. By the way, Fairfax County, Virginia, and Clark County, Nevada, are 2 out of only 14 jurisdictions that are Class 1. The state of West Virginia is Class 5. With the best Class 1 and the worst Class 10, please make sure you're looking out for the interests of the citizens. And anyway, the other thing, okay, I guess we got 30. You know, this is very serious, and I don't, you know, I've only been here a while, and I want everything to go good for the builder, the town, everybody. And I want to make sure that that everything is monitored on this project, because it's very important, and we will pay for this one way or another. If we don't pay for it now through inspection services, we'll pay for it later with higher rates and so on and so forth. So please check into this and behave accordingly. Thank you.
All right, Benjamin, thank you. Lynn just confirmed for me, that's our last speaker for today. Am I correct on that?
Those are the only residents who requested in advance to speak.
Okay, that's what I thought. I just want to make sure, because there's a lot going on today. So
Yeah.
Okay, so that closes, I believe, this portion of the. I'm just going to look at the hands raised.
We don't have any hands raised right now, so.
Okay, so if you could invite, this closes the public hearing portion of this hearing, and now I'd like to invite the SWAN group back in if
Okay.
they would like to respond to any of the comments they've heard tonight. And they don't have to if they don't want to.
Yes, think I got everybody in.
Okay, so I apologize for not having my video on. Something's wrong, and my video isn't working very well. But Laurel, if you want to respond to any of the comments or pass it off to some of your team to do that, feel free to do so.
Sure. I took some notes of the major concerns, and yeah, I do want to reiterate that we first asked for an emergency waiver in January the 27th, and we're already 2 months later. We would like to get this done as soon as possible, and it is long overdue, I agree. So with that, I'd like to start with Michael Binder discussing one of the main concerns about the traffic plan using Columbia and no other roads, large equipment, whether we're going to have flagmen. Michael, if you could just kind of review from you being the demo project manager. Thanks.
So, I mean, the day-to-day traffic and removal of materials will be up and down Columbia Street. The only reason why Jackson Street was on the site plan was for any larger truck that we had to bring up, flatbed truck, just to bring in equipment. We don't have to use that street. We are using smaller equipment. So Columbia Street will be the primary route for day-to-day removal of debris. And yes, I mean, there is a traffic plan in place, there's signage, and we will have flagged staff out there directing traffic as far as when the trucks are coming out.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. The second really echo was the questions about whether we're releasing anything hazmat into the air or into the rivers. And Jesse, I thought maybe you should just cover what the stormwater management manuals and the West Virginia state laws, what they what guidelines that we've designed to, and talk about that a little bit, please.
Sure. So as far as the erosion and sediment control, we've developed a fairly robust two-phase plan to ensure that proper controls will be put in place, proper perimeter controls will be put in place prior to any construction going on, to ensure that any downstream areas, any inlets areas that will be accepting water are fully protected. And then once construction does take place and is completed, that proper measures will be put in place to ensure that the site is safe for the public. And those measures include very standard West Virginia approved controls. So a plan that we put together is fully compliant and adheres to the West Virginia Erosion and Sediment Control Handbook. All the details that are provided are the minimum requirements. Now, that's not to say that when the contractor has their pre-construction meeting, doesn't say, we'd like to implement a couple more items that we believe are more suitable given the existing conditions out there today. So there are always a pre-construction meeting and pre-inspection meetings that will take place to ensure that the plan that we've developed is most appropriate for the very unique site conditions. And so the plan that we have developed is first and foremost to protect people and protect the resources that are adjacent to the site. There are very steep slopes. We understand that there are very sensitive waterways that must be protected, and our plan ensures that those will not be compromised or negatively impacted by this project. The only areas that are being used to support the demolition work are predominantly impervious surfaces that surround the site. So there are a couple surface parking lots that are pretty compacted gravel that will be used for temporary staging. So no other areas that are pervious will be used. So no runoff conditions will be negatively impacted. That should cause additional runoff to any of the surrounding areas. And again, construction fencing will be used. Proper construction entrances with robust washing areas, and that the water used will be clean water, and any dirty water that comes off will be stored and properly discharged, not to, again, the downslope waterways, but to areas that are willing to accept that dirty water. So once the sediment is removed, the water will be safely discharged to a sanitary sewer system, which is allowed by the West Virginia State Code.
Okay, thanks, Jesse. Going along with that, there was some mention of, maybe anything going into the air. And I mean, we know as engineers that there's, very strict EPA standards and guidelines. And maybe, Michael, you could talk a little bit about that. You mentioned in the schedule that there was a pre-demolition work plan and how that unfolds. I mean, that's something we don't do typically before we get a permit, correct?
Correct. So we were going to set up a meeting with the DEP to review all three divisions of water, air, and safety prior to demolition. And then we've gotten proposals for air monitoring services throughout the demolition process to ensure that we are complying with all regulations.
Okay, so that's something that would be done before, you called a pre-demo meeting?
Correct. So
okay.
There should be two inspections. There should be one to look at the sediment and erosion control, just to make sure everything's properly installed and in place throughout the project, but definitely prior to, and then having that meeting set up prior to any demolition starting with DEP.
Right. And I did mention before that all the any remediation people have license that we keep on file at the town. And there's always notifications given before any of that type of work is done. And we have done that in the past in compliance. So is there any other statements you want to make on that, Michael?
I
Or
was just going to say that all material will be, documented and quantified as well. So, and there'll be a record of that.
and we're going to be sorting the stone that we're reusing and palleting that on site, right?
That is correct.
Okay. The other thing that I wanted to discuss was the land disturbance permit that you're requesting. Jesse, I believe our land limits of disturbance is under an acre, like 0.7. Do you have it? What that acreage is of our limits of disturbance? I believe
it's 0.79, so just under 0.8. It's around 35,000 square feet of land disturbance.
Okay, so that doesn't trigger the state land disturbance permit. It has to be 1 acre over, correct?
That is correct.
Yeah.
Okay. And I know Dave Simmons started the meeting with discussing that there would be a requirement for a land disturbance permit. And I think under an emergency waiver that could be exempt is, what was that, 1703?
It's 1713-01D3, which states that an emergency activity that is immediately necessary for the protection of life, property, or natural resources is exempt from filing for a land disturbance permit.
Okay, so that kind of goes along with the request for the emergency waiver that I sent in January. So, I think that would be, a request that Swan has, that to not have further delay, exempt from this land disturbance cycle to the Planning Commission. I think that, since the state doesn't require us, because our land disturbance is under an acre, to file anything with them, and that we're only really taking down the building. We're not grading or digging underground for pathways or parking spaces. Do you have any input on that, Jesse or Michael?
Only that I agree with you, Laurel. There are, as I mentioned, overhead utilities that need to be disconnected. It makes sense to do that at this time, since they're only connected to the hotel, and they're no longer serving a current purpose, but it makes sense to take them down with this activity.
I agree.
Okay. I also, there was a lot of questions about documents or plans that I believe are made after we received a demo permit. Michael, you did mention the work plan, and then there's other things like utility cutoff letters, and David and the BZA, some of them were listed on that checklist that you sent us. And they are typically done after a permit is approved. Do you have any input on that, Michael?
As I said, the
Utility
work plan
panel.
is in place. We're working on it right now, so that seemed to be one of the requirements. So we can surely submit the work plan.
Traffic plan is.
The traffic plan was included with the demolition package.
And talking to the police chief and fire chief.
We can set all that up prior to, mobilization, just to make sure we have all the team players from the contractor and myself and Jesse or whomever else on board. So yeah, we could set up a pre-construction meeting with all the appropriate parties.
Okay, and of course, we can make sure all of our contractors have Harper's Ferry business license.
Absolutely.
And I already at a previous meeting discussed discussing tree commission if we needed to clear limbs to fit the equipment in. As far as a weekly meeting, Michael, is that typical for with a town representative?
It can be. I mean, not necessarily on a demolition project, but I have no problem with that. Just keeping people abreast of what's going on. And we can surely discuss like a 2-week look ahead schedule to say what the activities are, with, coming up within the next 2 weeks, just to give everybody notice. And yeah, we can meet weekly. I have no problem with that.
Okay, so and the abatement plan you said was with the pre-demolition meeting with the West Virginia DEP.
Correct.
And so, and then of course the West Virginia DEP construction stormwater general permit, we don't meet the criteria because we're under an acre.
Correct.
So I think we've kind of hit on most of those things on the checklist, members of the BZA, and there was also, I guess, some questions on our permit being complete, our application being, our application being incomplete. And I don't know, John, do you have any comments on that? John Stump? I think you're muted.
I think it's an overstatement to say the application is incomplete. There's a checklist that was provided that the members have, and I realize people are advocating the position, and that's their right to do. But to say the application is incomplete, I think it's a misnomer, because the reality is the items that are required to be completed in order to get BZA approval have been completed or are obviously complete, like shut off of the utilities at the existing hotel. I don't think anybody believes that there's water and sewer service up there right now, or other utilities. It would be gas service, for example, would be a threat. So there are certain items that need to be completed after the BZA acts, but as far as currently, the listed items have been addressed. And while certainly members of the public are entitled to propose whatever additional items they wish, they weren't delineated for Swan to be responsive to the permit.
Okay, well, I mean, Swan requests that because this is really a long overdue and a request for an emergency waiver, that we don't go through the planning commission process for land disturbance permit. We're not digging into any green space, only removing what is in the existing footprint of the hotel. Jesse, do you have any other comments on that?
No.
Have you ever worked on a project that required a land disturbance permit of this type from a demolition?
Not given the circumstances of this project. When you're dealing with a building that is, the structural integrity is zero, and the need to take it down for a safety perspective, this is the appropriate means to do this.
Okay. Does anybody on the Swan team want to add anything that I might not have noted as they were going through public comments? Okay, I guess.
Good.
Oh, Michael?
No, I said I'm good. I mean,
Oh, you're good. Okay.
I'm good.
All right. So, I mean, I think we've hit on the main points. We went over, the schedule, which we would really like to hold to. And we thank you for all the residents for their comments. And I know that Fred and Karen love Harper's Ferry just as much as the rest of us do, the residents, and they will definitely commit to all the federal and state guidelines and standards for public safety. Thank you.
I'm still having video issues. Thanks, you guys. I really appreciate you taking the time to respond to the comments. Other members, you have points of clarification, questions to clarify anything? No.
The only thing, Laurel, that I felt might be helpful there were a couple of questions about that seemed to have to do with exactly the process, or not exactly, but generally the process of the demolition. Is blasting going to be involved? Are you using a wrecking ball? Could you give the public just some idea of what's going on there?
I mean, it's all part of the work plan, but there is definitely no blasting and there is no wrecking ball. I can commit to that. Yes. I don't know. I mean, it's going to be some hand demolition. There'll be some machinery, but no blasting, no wrecking ball.
Yeah, I'd like to add my thanks to you all for your time and your honest and hard work to answer the public's questions.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
You've been doing a lot of hard work too, so we appreciate that.
This is Dave. You can't see me because there I am. Help people understand the asbestos the sequencing of the asbestos abatement before, because at an earlier meeting we had, you said there was you're going to remove it and then the demolition begins. So when you gave that schedule, that's why I asked you to kind of clarify, because I think it'd be good for people to hear that the demolition is removed, that kind of thing. And if the building is not doesn't have structural integrity, is there a chance that some gets left in place? Those kinds of questions, just kind of speak through that.
That I would have to go back to the ACM contractor as far as how he plans on doing that. But as we always stated, it will be done per state and federal regulations. So it's just part of the work plan on how they plan on getting some of those areas where the structural integrity of the building is compromised.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else? Okay. Need a motion to close the hearing. Thanks everyone for participating.
So moved.
Okay, Lynn's moving that we close the hearing. Need a second.
Hey, Chad was seconding, right?
Chad was seconding. Okay.
Got it.
Lynn, need a vote? Yes
Aye.
or no? Mike? He raised his hand for the record and said aye. Chris?
Aye.
Chad?
Aye.
Me, aye. Okay, thanks everybody. And
Everyone.
we'll set up a time for a future meeting here for us. And let
Thank you
everybody
from
know.
the Swan team.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
All right, take care.
Oh, wait a minute. Wait. Ken has his hand up.
Who does?
No, I was
Ken.
waving goodbye.
No. Ken Sayer.
Oh, Ken. Sorry, go Ken.
Did we just make a motion to adjourn? Or are we ending the comment period and now we're going to deliberate and discuss amongst ourselves on this demolition permit?
I think the plan was we adjourn the meeting. We're gonna deliberate at a future meeting that we'll schedule.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep. Okay. Thanks, everybody.
All right, thank you.
See ya.
All right, take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.